There's a belief in marketing that pops up every few years that email is dead. People say inboxes are way too crowded, nobody reads emails anymore, and that social media has completely replaced it. But the interesting thing is that when we look at the data across hundreds of campaigns, email is still one of the highest ROI marketing channels that exists. The problem isn't that email doesn't work, the problem is that most businesses, including dental practices, are using it in a way that almost guarantees it will fail. What usually happens is this: someone fills out a form for a consultation or downloads some information about veneers or Invisalign, and they receive either no follow-up emails or they receive one very generic message that says something like this: "Thank you for your interest. Contact us if you'd like to book an appointment." And then the practice wonders why the lead never converts. The reality is that most people who inquire about cosmetic dentistry are not ready to make their decision immediately. They're curious, they're researching, and they're trying to understand what the process looks like and whether it's right for them. Which means practices that win are the ones who stay present in the patient's mind during that decision-making process. And one of the best tools for doing that is a well-structured email nurture sequence. When someone first becomes a lead for cosmetic dentistry, they're usually somewhere in the middle of a decision journey. They might already know they want to improve their smile, but they're still trying to figure out questions like: how much will it cost? How long will the treatment take? What will the results look like? And most importantly, which dentist they should trust with the procedure. These are big decisions and people naturally take time to think about them. That's why many dental practices notice that a large percentage of their leads simply go quiet after the initial inquiry. But quiet doesn't mean uninterested. It usually means the patient needs more information and reassurance before moving forward. And that's exactly what a nurture sequence is designed to provide. The goal of a nurture sequence is not to pressure someone into booking. Instead, the goal is to educate, build trust, and keep the practice top of mind while the patient is considering their options. When done properly, each email answers a question that the patient is already thinking about. It helps them understand the treatment process, see real results, and feel more confident about the decision they are considering. By the time they eventually book a consultation, they're already feeling like they understand the approach and trust your expertise. And that makes the entire consultation process so much smoother. A simple structure we often use is a 14-day nurture sequence, where leads receive several emails over the first 2 weeks after the inquiry. The timing is important because this is the period where most people are actively researching and comparing options. The first email usually arrives immediately after the lead comes in. The message is welcoming and informative, thanking the person for their interest and explaining what they can expect if they decide to move forward with the consultation. The goal here is simply to make the patient feel acknowledged and comfortable. The second email, typically sent a day or two later, focuses on education. This might explain how veneers work, what the smile design process looks like, or how long different treatments typically take. Education content is powerful because it positions the dentist as an expert while also reducing uncertainty. Over the next few emails, the sequence usually introduces social proof. This can include before and after transformations, short patient stories, or testimonials that describe how someone felt before and after the treatment. When potential patients see real examples of people who had similar concerns and achieved great results, it becomes much easier for them to imagine that outcome for themselves. Another important email in the sequence focuses on common concerns or objections. For example, many people worry about things like pain, recovery time, or whether the results will look natural. Addressing these things openly helps remove mental barriers that otherwise stop them from booking a consultation. Toward the end of the sequence, the emails gently return to the invitation to book a consultation. But by this point, the message feels very different from a cold sales pitch because the patient has already spent several days learning about the practice, seeing real results, and becoming more comfortable with the idea of treatment. When nurture sequences are set up properly, the engagement numbers are often much better than people expect. Open rates frequently sit somewhere between 35 and 50%, especially when the subject lines are clear and curiosity driven. Click-through rates might fall in the 3 to 10% range, depending on the content of the email. But the most important metric is not the open rate or the click rate. It's the number of leads who eventually book a consultation days or even weeks after those initial inquiries. Those bookings often happen because the patient continued receiving valuable information while they were making their decision. Cosmetic dentistry involves high value treatments, which means the patient journey is naturally longer than it might be for smaller services. People take time to research, compare providers, and imagine the outcome they want. If your practice disappears after the first interaction, the patient simply will continue to research somewhere else. But if your practice continues to provide helpful information and reassurance during that decision-making process, you remain the most familiar and trusted option. And when the patient finally decides that they're ready to move forward, they are far more likely to choose your practice that they've been hearing from consistently. When you combine a strong nurture sequence with other marketing systems like paid ads, organic content, and follow-up messaging, something powerful begins to happen. Instead of leads coming in and disappearing, they move through a structured journey that gradually builds trust and confidence. Some will book immediately, others may take a few days or weeks, but over time, more of those leads turn into consultations and eventually into patients. And that can make a significant difference to the overall revenue of a cosmetic dental practice. If you want help building a system like this for your practice, where leads are consistently nurtured through email, content, and follow-up until they're ready to book, we do a done-for-you partnership where our team handles the entire marketing system for you. If you'd like to learn more, you can find a link in the description below, or you can send us a DM on Instagram and our team will point you in the right direction. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe because we'll be sharing more strategies on how to attract and convert high value cosmetic patients.